Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast, coming to you today from the sleepy summer camp on Crystal Lake. My name is Martin, I'm your host, and with me, as always, is your other host, Conor. How are we doing today, Conor?
Not too bad, buddy. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm really excited because lots of cool horror shit was announced last week.
Yep. We got a new book coming our way, and so I'm pretty pumped about. The unfortunate curse of your campaign, Martin, where you finish an arc on a particular theme, and then that theme is then released in a book after the fact, appears to have continued, because you just finished a werewolf horror kind of arc in your home game, and now we have Van Richten's guide to Ravenloft. Am I right?
Yeah, that would have been like super helpful in like designing all these like gothic horror experiences that I've been doing since like September. It's actually ridiculous, right? Because I remember like one of the first big arcs I did for my guys, I did a whole section of like naval combat and ship to ship combat, and we finished that section and they got to where they were going, and literally that week you were like, hey, they've announced Ghosts of Saltmarsh, it's this pirate adventure, it rules for ship combat, and I was like, oh, that's great. And like literally now I finished my gothic horror arc and they're like, yo, you like the spooks, we got them, let's go.
I'd be interested. I believe I said to you like earlier in the week, you should totally do a Planescape arc in your campaign, just so that the D&D community can get what they long desire.
I can't say anything because it may be a possibility in the future. Like, I'm not joking. It's I've thought about it. I've actually thought about it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I've actually thought about going full Planescape in my campaign a few times, but I'm kind of like, I'm slightly intimidated by like the nature of Planescape and having to be able to like perfectly set.
Planescape or Spelljammer? I'm thinking of that the audience that like the D&D community is constantly vying for, and every time there's a new book, they're like, is it the thing? No, okay.
I think Spelljammer, but like Planescape is usually pretty popular as well, because that just involves like hopping between. We've done a bit of that in the campaign you're running for us at the moment. Like we've been to the material plane, we've been very quickly through the elemental plane of water, we've been to the Shadowfell, and sort of in the Fae.
Oh no, you were definitely in the Feywild, yeah.
Sick.
Yeah, the Feywild is a moon in my world, and you went to the moon.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, that's what I took, because I forgot that both the Feywild and the Shadowfell moons. I was like, oh, we went to the Shadow Moon, and I was like, what was the other? Oh yeah, of course it was. That's where I got my spear. What am I?
Yeah, exactly. You got your spear. You went into a obsidian glass volcano in the middle of a black desert, and stole it from a summer Eladrin fortress.
And I distinctly remember rolling a natural one on stealth there and ruining our chance to get any other cool gear from there other than my spear. I fell down the stairs.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it was just you. Was it you and Wabu? I thought both rolled ones, and as a result, you kind of tumbled into a ball of barbarian and rolled and clattered down the stairs. And then when you got there was just two Eladrin guard looking at you, and kind of looked at each other and looked back, and then drew their weapons.
It didn't end well for them, though.
No, it did not. But you got out of there in a fairly hairy fashion as well. As soon as you lifted up the spearhead in the vault, the floor just disappeared, and you fell down into the volcano below.
That was when I was really grateful that we had the genie. The genie was the game saver there.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, less of our kind of stuff. But like, I'm actually really excited to talk about the Van Richten stuff, because like we've said it a few times, I love horror in general, but like, in terms of like a setting for a thing, I love like gothic horror or like dark fantasy, like your Dark Souls, your Bloodborne, like all that kind of stuff. Like I actually have really loved like your very classic old school movie monsters as well, stuff like Castlevania. If you've ever seen Hellsing, that kind of plays with the format of that a little bit, but it's still kind of a very similar tale. And like, it's Van Richten's, like, come on, he's like knockoff Van Helsing, like.
Oh yeah, 110%. Yeah, I love that. We talked about vampires very briefly last week, and about the kind of powers and abilities they have in D&D, and how that kind of pertains to their real world
lore.
What's the word? Lore. Thank you very much. Me of all people, I forgot the word lore. But yeah, I love how that kind of pertains to all that stuff and how they work it into the game. I have no doubt that this will be another great source of stuff like that, and I think you could run, because don't forget, like, Curse of Strahd is, I would say, easily the most popular pre-written campaign adventure you can have in 5e.
It's definitely iconic.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, absolutely. So it's I feel like maybe that and Tomb of Annihilation will be up there as well. It's pretty popular.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people have hang-ups at Tomb of Annihilation though. Like I think like XP to level 3 Jacob from that, he did a whole video about how he thinks like the Tomb of Annihilation is dumb because it's just too difficult and too weird.
Yeah,
but it's definitely iconic as well. I think it's like that, and yeah, probably that and Barovia, and like Eberron is pretty iconic too.
Eberron, yeah, has some really good stuff to it as well. But I just love the like you said, the gothic horror element to this. I'm hoping this will. I think I said this when it was announced. I'm kind of hoping this will scratch the horror itch that I had from Rime of the Frostmaiden. I actually, just for the record, I think Rime of the Frostmaiden is a really good book. I think it's a really good adventure, and it fleshes out what's it called, Icewind Dale as an area quite well. My problem is that every single video I watched and article I read leading up to that's release, every one of the writers, including Chris Perkins, was kind of quoting or citing The Thing as a film for that kind of isolated horror element and stuff like that. And after reading through the book, I don't know, I didn't really get that from it personally. It seemed just more like maybe there's an element, a very slight element, but it was not the horror I wanted. I wanted something that was as terrifying and I wanted some truly weird monsters.
Yeah.
And we got a couple of good ones in there, but like some of them are just another breed of giants. Some are just various Arctic versions of pre-existing
There was
monsters.
a lot of reskinning going on there, which I found a little disappointing. But like as I said, like overall, it's a good book. Like I like the book. The art is killer. But like. So
good, and I love that whale that they have that can make the bubble appear on his head, and he acts as like a little submarine.
So adorable.
I love
the
that.
familiars. They introduced a bunch of new familiars in that as well that are just absolutely spectacular and like so cute and adorable. But yeah, I think it's.
I'm hoping this book is, and I think it will be. I'm confident it will be. I just want this to be more horror, particularly because I'm running a horror-ish arc at the moment for you guys. We kind of wrapped up one section of that.
So I would describe that pretty much as like you've ran us through like basically a proper cosmic horror arc, and that's kind of been taken around in the background since we started, really.
Yeah. And I do have more I want to do with it, but I'm hoping this will kind of play into it. This I feel I mentioned before the campaign idea. It's like a 1 to 10 campaign idea that I had.
Yeah. Where
you guys would go to this old continent where humans used to live, but they mass migrated. There was a huge exodus up from that continent because of the darkness, and no one really knows what it is because it's been a couple thousand years now. But I had an idea of blending some Curse of Strahd elements with some like Kong Skull Island elements, so there's lots of monsters and lots of kind of gothic horror, and it's about exploring this wild, savage and dark continent. But I think this book is gonna flow into that so brilliantly. I've high expectations, and maybe I'll get my heart broken again. I'm looking at you, Icewind Dale, but you never know. I have confidence. There's some solid lore, not just in this version or in this edition of D&D, but spanning back every edition of D&D to draw from, to inspire the characters, the settings, and everything that surrounds and what that's in this book. So I'm confident that we'll get a nice rich book with a lot of crunch to it.
Totally. I took some notes from a Nerd Immersion video that I watched earlier on. Like he basically went through the listing on Amazon. It's quite a good video. I'd recommend giving it a look if you want a bit more info. But I just took short notes on like what they've actually confirmed is in it. I think some really cool stuff in there. So we've got 3 new origins, I suppose they're called now, or races. But the cool thing about these is these aren't ones you start with. These are ones that can happen to you. So we've got the Dampier, the Hexblood, and the Returned, which are the 3 new origins we talked about last time we were talking about. I think it was the first Unearthed Arcana of 2021. Was those 3?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's for anyone who hasn't seen that, those are Dampier is basically a slightly watered down vampire origin.
I think they're half vampire.
Half vampire, sorry, that's it. Yeah,
half of their parentage is vampire.
Yeah, and then you've got the Hexblood, where basically you come from a Fey stock, and like you're related to hags in some way. And also mentioned that you could possibly like become a hag later through some way. And then finally we have the Returned, which is like your archetypal character who's come back from death. So you some kind of an undead, maybe like a conscious zombie, or what I immediately was drawn to with that one was like your Frankenstein's type undead construct character, like that
pieced together from all these different organs and stuff like that.
Hell yeah!
I just thought of one there, and I'd have to look at the stats again for that subclass. And this is a terrible movie to quote for a character.
Oh please.
You know the 5th Pirates of the Caribbean movie, where
is that World's End?
No, that's the 3rd one. Then there's On Stranger Tides.
Okay.
And then
you've already lost me.
Oh, 1 second. Pirates. Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Okay, I have actually heard of that one. Is that the one where they introduce like a bunch of random characters and one of them is like Donnie Yen?
I don't think so. No.
Was it
this one is the first actual like continuation. It's got Javier Bardem, and he's basically, I want to say he's a Spanish like military admiral or captain who has his own ship, and he was hunting Jack Sparrow as a kid, and Jack Sparrow tricked them into blowing up their own ship and dying at sea or something like that.
Right.
So because he's so racked with vengeance, he comes back and he's this. To be fair, the effects were kind of cool. Because they drowned at sea. Even when they're walking on land, they have these part ghostly, there'll be a section of flesh missing, and it's kind of a ghostly form there instead. Okay. And then their hair always floats like they're underwater.
Cool. That's cool.
And I'm like, that could be kind of an interesting spin. A terrible movie, but that could be kind of an interesting spin for one of those characters if you wanted to play the what was it called again?
The Returned.
Returned. Yeah. If you want to play one, that could be kind of interesting.
Bad movies can have good concepts in them. They just don't execute them well, That's basically the entire DCEU.
That's basically all. Oh, you beat me to it. I was going to say that's all of Zack Snyder's films. Although, that being said, and you know this because I tend to go on rants about this in our D&D chat. I have mad beef with Zack Snyder. I've got so much beef with Zack Snyder.
Why is everything grey and brown, Zach? Why? There's other colours. You can do it. We know you can.
I'm going on a fucking record right now, right? The Snyder Cut will not save the DCU, nor will it be better. It'll be longer. There'll be some new content. People, I don't know, like, everyone was like, Zack Snyder's not a good director. Why do we keep letting him make movies? And then they're like, Joss Whedon's taking over Justice League. This will be incredible. And then it wasn't. And everyone's like, bring back Zack Snyder. It's like, why would you bring back that? You already said you didn't like him. Why are we going back to the thing you confirmed that you don't like?
Yeah.
But everyone, oh god, I feel like the whole internet did a weird turn there, where everyone's like, oh, Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, oh, such terrible films, no more Zack Snyder. And then Zack Snyder was making Justice League, and Joss Whedon came in. Everyone's like, but we like Avengers, so yeah, Joss Whedon. And then as soon as Joss Whedon made the movie and no one liked it, everyone was like, boo, we want more Zack Snyder. It's like, I thought you hated Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
You said, I don't. Okay.
See, I think what that to just wrap us up, maybe get slightly back onto like Van Richten's and stuff. I think the
last thing I need is another Zack Snyder rant.
I think the reason people want to see it is like there are people who are diehard DCU and love the direction it goes and like all the really dark and gritty and edgelordy shit. But like those people really want to see Zack Snyder's whole vision, right? They want, because like obviously there was massive studio interference, massive reshoots, completely like it's basically the final product is basically a mishmash of like what he originally shot and then what Joss Whedon, who has been revealed to be a terrible fucking human being recently, what he reshot, and then it's just a mishmash of both. So it's not really anyone's vision. Like the best thing I can say for the Snyder Cut will be definitively Zack Snyder's vision for all the good and bad that entails. Heavily on the bad, in my opinion. I say this as someone who loves 300 as well. I love 300. 300 is like one of my favorite films to just turn on and be like, fuck yeah! But like, no, stop, man. You don't understand Superman. You said Batman would get raped in prison. Just fucking stop.
Yeah, and I've been on around to this before. He has some weird ideas about the DCU, and we'll get back onto D&D in a moment.
Yeah.
This is our token going off the beaten path conversation. He has some weird ideas with the MCU.
DCU.
He thought that Superman. First of all, his whole idea of Superman is, oh yeah, he's a guy with like a god complex. No, he's not. He's a simple farm kid with like wholesome values. That's kind of what makes him human, even though he's not. And that he completely glossed over that. Also, Jonathan Kent did not need to die in that tornado, nor did Jonathan Kent when when he was all like, well, I used my powers to pull the school bus out of the river. What was I meant to do? Let him die? And he was like, maybe. No, don't like. What are you saying?
Also, Jonathan Kent would never do that. Never.
No, but because again, it's his parents that instill these solid morals and good values into him that makes Superman the guy he is, and Snyder just misses that. And then his version of Lex Luthor is, first off, I like Jesse Eisenberg.
Someone told him he was playing the Riddler. Someone told him he was playing the Riddler.
The Riddler, or someone said, here, we want to cast you as Lex Luthor. Watch The Dark Knight 50 times in a row there, and just see what Heath Ledger does for you, because he's kooky and weird and kind of talks like this. And I'm like, that's Lex Luthor is cold and calculating and manipulative in a subtle degree. He's not walking out and being like, oh my God, I have Bruce Wayne in my house, and Senator, angels come from demons don't come from the ground below, they come from the sky above. I'm like, why is he so weird, and why does he have a basketball hoop in LexCorp? That's the real thing I want to know. But yeah, he's weird, and a thing that is, it doesn't come from the movie, but in interviews, Snyder said this. He said that in his headcanon for the DC universe he was setting up, Lex Luthor was like sexually abused by his father as a kid. And I'm like, but why? I don't like, Snyder has a real problem with
he just
rape and sexual
he equates like edgy topics to maturity, and that's the problem with DCU in total, is like they feel so, it feels like they feel that they're so embarrassed by the fact that they're making comic book movies that they have to try and like tone it down, whereas Marvel will go like, no, we're gonna put Cap in his full comic accurate costume,
stars and stripes all the way,
a walking American flag with the big bright shield. Absolutely, yeah, we're gonna do that. Spider-Man, he's gonna look like it. Yeah, he's gonna wear that fucking costume. And like that was one of the things that really annoyed me about X-Men as well, is because they never put Wolverine in the yellow and blue because they thought it would look dumb. Like, it's a fucking comic book movie. Who are you trying to sell it to, other than the people who like the fact that he's gonna be wearing a fucking yellow and blue costume?
Yeah. Also, I'm sure you have plenty of like arts people on staff. Get someone to redesign it that they incorporate the yellow and blue with some black and stuff, so it kind of looks like a.
But like, the deleted scene in the Wolverine, and it looked so good. It looked so good.
And he's like, I'm not wearing that.
That's the first thing Marvel will do when they do X-Men, is it will put him in that fucking costume. Like,
and the world will rejoice.
Yeah, I will. Sorry, I grew, Wolverine was like one of my fucking very favorite things when I was growing up. So I was like, yo, when like I loved seeing him, but like as they progressively went, no, we're not going to put them in the costumes, and like you can just get that feel from DCU. Yeah. Comic books just be accurate. That's why that new Mortal Kombat trailer kicks ass, is because like it actually is like what they do in the game and what people love about Mortal Kombat. So just do the same with DCU.
I've said this before about Snyder. He is your friend's older brother. If you're like 12, he's like 17 or 8, or maybe like he's like 17, 18, 19. Mm-hmm. He's older. He has his own. He has his room in the garage. So he's kind of like I got my own place. It's kind of connected to my parents' house, but whatever. And it's full of like metal albums and posters on the wall of like skulls and like naked women. And then like you think to yourself, oh man, this guy's really, as a 12-year-old, you look at him and you go, oh man, this guy's so cool. He's got all this, he's into all this really cool like metal music, and all the comic books he has are full of like violence and stuff. It's so cool. And then when you grow up later on, you get to like the age of like 20 something, and then he's like 30 something, but he's still doing that, and you're like, oh, you're not like older and cooler, you're just some like edgelord that can't get out of some sort of teenage mind space of and then he blows the guy's head off and it was awesome. That's not story, man. That's not the story.
There's a quote I saw in it was a review of Batman vs Superman by the Cosmonaut Picture Show. I love that guy's videos, he's so great. But he was saying that there was a quote he quoted from Zack Snyder in an interview where he was basically saying like, he didn't really like normal comic books, and he was like, oh, they bore me, no one's killing each other or having sex. And then someone showed me Watchmen and it was like, oh yeah, they're killing each other having sex. Like, yeah, but Watchmen is like an anti-violence, it's deliberately goes massively overboard on violence to parody what the violence in
part of the message of the Watchmen is look how violent and destructive these superheroes, these vigilantes are. This isn't okay. That's kind of the joke of it. But he's like, he read The Watchmen and goes, all superheroes should be like this, and like, oh.
Yeah. Anyway, Van Richten's Guide, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm done. Until next time someone mentions the he who must not be named.
Yeah, he'll we'll look back in this someday when we've our movie review empire and be like, oh, it all started there.
We'll do there was a thing Dan Harmon used to do on his podcast. So Dan Harmon's a creator of Community.
Yeah. Rick
and
and Morty.
Chevy Chase was in that for the first, and Rick and Morty as well. And Chevy Chase was in that for like 4 seasons.
I heard he was a Titanic asshole.
Oh, well, he was, but also Dan was like notoriously hard to work with, and the two of them used to clash all the time. But like every now and again, well after the two of them had fallen out, Dan still had Chevy's phone number in his phone, and he used to drink like vodka straight on his podcast and get really drunk. And every now and again he'd go, we call Chevy Chase, let's call Chevy Chase, and he'd just call him in front of a live audience on the podcast. And Chevy he'd never answer, but he'd leave him voice messages and stuff like that. And I'm like, that'll be me. I'll somehow get Zack Snyder's phone number, and every few podcasts I'll just be like, let's call Zack. Let's call Zack Snyder and see what he thinks.
Oh god.
And he'll be like, who are you and how did you get this number?
Yeah. Oh god. So we'll move away from like the dark domain of the DCU and get into some D&D dark domains, because that's the big thing with Van Richten's Guide is they say there's
nice transition. Very nice transition.
Thank you very much. And as always, we love pointing them out. But yeah, there'll be 30 dark domains is what they're saying. 30. And yeah, the kind of stuff I just jotted down is the way previously like Ravenloft and stuff has been I don't know a ton about Ravenloft, hands up, but apparently the way previously it was conceptualized is like Ravenloft and Barovia. I'm not sure if Barovia is included in it, but basically
Barovia is within
Ravenloft.
Technically I think Ravenloft was the name of Strahd's castle.
Yes, Castle Ravenloft.
So it's Castle Ravenloft, and then Barovia is like one I don't know, principality or something like that,
the province of Ravenloft. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I don't think within the lore it's called Ravenloft, but it like that just became synonymous with the realm or with that plane because of the name of the castle. If I'm right on that.
Okay, cool. Correct us if we're wrong, people. We don't mind being corrected. But yeah, so it's got these 30 dark domains, and the way apparently previously though it was lined up was stuff like Ravenloft was all part of this like hidden continent or like a forgotten continent called the Core. But now the way they're structuring it is basically each of these domains are individual like a domain, like a kingdom, and they've got each have their own individual dark lord, and they're like islands separated and lost within the mist. And they make a particular mention of one. I think it's Falconia. And basically Falconia before was very like Dracula inspired, and there was like a Dark Lord there who was very much Vlad Tepish, and they mentioned this one in particular. So what they've done is they've actually completely taken that back to the start, taken out all the Dracula stuff, because that's pretty well covered and very well done with Strahd. He's already basically Dracula anyway. So what they did was they turned Falconia into this like zombie apocalypse area. And like zombies will act differently there. Like zombies in Strahd and in Ravenloft are different to like zombies elsewhere in the Forgotten Realm apparently. So that'll be really cool. Other stuff that I wrote down that I thought was really cool is so they will also provide like a guide to making your own dark domain. So if you want to do like your own special little island of horror, they'll have tools that they're going to provide you with, so you can figure out how to build that up. And like that's I think probably the most exciting thing for me in that. Even though I've already done like one horror thing, it's like fuck it, like it'll be October in a few months. I can roll that out again and have a great time.
So yeah, I'm honestly, that's the part I'm really interested and curious to get my teeth into, because I feel like as a realm, Ravenloft and Barovia and stuff with Strahd being the Dark Lord is so well fleshed out. I'll be really interested to see what their other ones. I presume, like you said, there's a zombie one. There's probably a werewolf one in there somewhere.
I believe. I think I might have heard about. I don't know, some other video. I've watched a bunch of videos that are all kind of mushing into one, just like how the days are now. And I think I vaguely remember hearing. I think there's like one based on like the Indian concept of hell, which could be really cool. Like, as in, like I think like the Hindu concept of hell or something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. Like again, like it's 30 is a lot.
Yeah, you can do a whole. I'm hoping there's some, like, because some of the Asian hells are like really fucked up and weird and cool, and would make like a really like mind-bending D&D experience. Like, I think it's like, I'm sorry. It's in this is hilarious. So there's a Mongolian heavy metal band that I listen to called The Who, and they cover.
Are they the throat singing guys?
Yes, they're fucking awesome. Everyone should listen to them.
They're really catchy. You showed me before.
But they covered a Metallica song called Sad But True, and the video is basically a guy going through Buddhist hell, and he's in this like eternally like this black sanded desert walking through, and like he's there and he like ages from like baby to child to adult to old man, and then like by the time he's an old man he finds a lump of gold and he's trying to like carve the gold out, and like he basically has to repeat this whole cycle where he comes back each time, gets closer to the gold and fails, dies, and then starts all over again. And like to do something
like that Doctor Who episode where he's trapped in a prison, and every time he dies because the monster in there gets him, if the monster gets him basically he dies, but it's a slow moving monster, and he kind of finds this room where there's like a crystal wall and he knows the way out is on the other side, and he just has to basically every time he cycles around and dies, a new one of him is birthed from this machine, and he has to like punch a wall, like this crystal wall, and over the course of thousands of years he erodes it away with his punches and then manages to escape.
I think so. I think it's a similar thing. I'd imagine that's what they took inspiration from. But I think it's like in Buddhism, I think it's called samsara. It's a cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And basically, the goal of enlightenment is to escape that cycle of life, death, and rebirth, so you don't have to continually be reincarnated and suffer because of your physical attachments. So, like, I think if they were to take something like that, because there's some really cool like Asian like deities and demons and stuff like that that are within like Buddhist hell and stuff, and other kind of Asian ones as well, that I think like if they're going that far out for like influences and domains, and like I said there are 30 of them, like you can do a lot of really
That's a lot. Yeah,
you could cover not only all of the like say your classic universal monster tropes. There's going to be an Egyptian one as well.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so like you'll probably have like your vampires, your werewolves, your Frankensteins, I'd imagine. Probably, I'd say, the Egyptian one for sure. That Asian one, and that's
mummies in the Egyptian.
That's only like 5, and you've covered most of like the main what people think is like the iconic monsters, like your Dracula, your Frankenstein, your Wolfman, your Mummy. They can do really weird shit. They've also said they're going to do cosmic horror as well, which is great.
Brilliant. That I'll definitely pull on. I'm just looking here. There's one of the art pieces in the article they have up in D&D Beyond, and it's a person with like a flintlock pistol and a short sword, and they're in a flaming town that's like run down. But the lycanthropes behind them look to be were-rats and not werewolves.
Oh, yeah. They're already in the game.
Oh no, I know where rats are. Yeah, but I'm just saying like there hasn't been any stories centered around them. That kind of reminds me of what's that Warhammer game?
Vermintide.
Vermintide, yeah. That kind of runs through Vermintide there.
I don't play Warhammer, but that looks dope. I'd love to give that a go. Vermintide 2 is coming out soon, actually.
It's already out, I think, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I've kind of been disconnected from it, but like, I would love to play that with a squad. That looks like absolute crack.
I'll tell you, me, Gav, and one of the other lads, and we'll get together. We'll get a 4-man squad going, and it's out already. Yeah, 2018. Not ages.
2.
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
2. Yeah. I'm totally up with that. So I'm going to pencil that one in.
Yeah, sure.
We'll circle back later.
We have to now. It's been recorded. You can't let this down.
It's on the record. Gavin, when you're listening to this, you know that you need to now buy Vermintide 2.
You have been summoned.
But yeah, I think there's a lot you can do, and like 30. I can't even. Yeah. I don't think if I sat down for 8 hours straight, I don't think I could rattle off or even come up with 30 different domains. So that you can tell they put a lot of work into this.
I think there's what mentioned as well. There'll be like some lighter hearted stuff, so you could do like a Scooby-Doo or like a supernatural themed short campaign as well. Which I think like a Scooby-Doo horror one shot where you're actually like a D&D party and have and actually fight things. That would be so much fun, because that just gives me such vibes of like the Scooby-Doo supernatural crossover, where like Shaggy and Scooby are like fighting demons. I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
There's a. I'm just looking through more of the article here. They're talking about the different monsters that they're adding and stuff. 40 pages worth of horrific monsters, Ravenloft favorites, spin-offs from pop culture classics, cosmic madness, and even plenty of creepy nautical nasties in the Sea of Sorrows. So the Sea of Sorrows is probably one as well.
I'm really excited for that, because I have nautical based plans for the future of my campaign again, and oh man, like if they give us a full on like creature from the Black Lagoon or like Loch Ness monster, Kraken, like they're you're real like when Pirates of the Caribbean went its like darkest and most eldritch. That's what I want. I cannot wait for that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's gonna be so much. There's gonna be so much fuel to so much to draw on from this book. So I'm just really enraptured. I'm looking through the art and was really enraptured.
Oh, it's the art.
One here,
like
of like a one. Honestly, it's not one.
There's one of two people sword fighting in it that I absolutely adore. They've got like glowing red eyes and they're like dressed almost like musketeers. Like the art in the last few books they've put out have just been consistently fucking amazing. Like,
hitting it out of the park every single time.
Absolute
There's
credit
one
to
here of a
everyone.
guy in like a smoky room with some sort of big contraption behind him.
Yes. Is that
And
the one?
I don't know what it is, but I want to know what it is because I like mixing a little bit of steampunk or just a little bit of technology stuff into my worlds.
That's the thing. Like, with horror, like horror mixes really well with everything.
Yeah.
Like literally everything. Like you think like, oh, horror and romance can't work together. Shaun of the Dead.
I don't know if I would put either of those films.
Shaun of the Dead is literally described as a rom-com.
All right. That's me. Okay.
Proof.
That's. I had an argument. I feel like it's completely invalid with by you using the term rom-com.
That Simon Pegg specifically described it as that.
I've no comeback to that. So
it's such a great term, isn't it?
Yeah. Actually, speaking of Simon Pegg, myself and Tara started The Boys.
Oh yeah.
He does a pretty convincing American accent.
Yeah, he does a really good one.
Obviously, I'm not American. I'm sure Americans listen to that and go, "Oh my god, he sounds so stupid." Personally, for someone who's outside of America, I think he does a pretty convincing accent. I'm surprised.
Ditto. You know, he's a great choice to play Huey's dad in that as well. Like, I absolutely believe that Simon Pegg is his dad. Like,
you believe they're related, like
100%. The Boys. If anyone has not watched that, I would highly recommend. It is a bit X-rated, but X-rated is probably bad. R-rated. The R-rated is the one I meant.
X-rated means something different.
Yeah. We just say 18s in Ireland.
There is some stuff. I mean, like one of the opening scenes, a guy gets a gun that he's pointing at a superhero melted onto his hands, and all the burning metal. Like,
I love it. Like because what they do is they basically just apply real world physics to what would happen if superheroes did what you would see in the comic books, and it's always horrifying. And we're back to horror. You could do a superhero horror story. That's basically what The Boys is.
I've only watched one episode so far fully, but I've seen lots of clips from the show because I couldn't keep myself away, but I didn't have Prime to watch it just yet. So I've seen loads of clips of Homelander, and that dude is unsettling, and you could totally extrapolate that into a horror where there is. I mean, like, even actual DC Comics have done it so many times where Superman decides, do you know what? I need to become a dictator and control the world so I can protect it from itself, kind of thing.
Isn't it like Earth 2 Superman is the crime syndicate? That's the crime syndicate world, isn't it? And Superman is like a dictator that rules over the world? Or is that Kingdom Come? That's Kingdom Come Superman.
Is it Injustice? Is the game series that does it, which is really cool to think about.
I do, just for a note, I do not hate DC. I hate the live action movie division. Their animated films and their comic books.
Oh man, their animated films are phenomenal every single time. Well adapted, but also like very much made their own. Which
actually,
is,
do you know what's great? A great tie into this that we were talking about to kind of bring it back around to D&D. There is an animated DC movie called Justice League Dark, and it's so good, and it's such a D&D party because you have Batman, John Constantine, you have Zatanna, you have Deadman, and you have the Demon Ertigan. See, I do know DC. I don't hate DC. Right?
So you could. I mean, I would 110% make a John Constantine character. If I was running any sort of, if I was playing in Curse of Strahd or any sort of horror-based thing, I would totally make a John Constantine.
But I'm just thinking there, just like in terms of like the stuff that they've said that they give you, and like other things you could already do, like you could legit probably do like a very heavily Justice League Dark inspired like D&D campaign, because what they do is basically just go out on missions and deal with supernatural threats. So like that's a perfect impetus for a D&D campaign or even a series of one shots. And like just between like the races they're giving you all these dark domains you can design shit around, and the fact that like with Justice League Dark they deal with like the supernatural a lot. You could do a whole area based on Blade or something like that, where it's like a vampire hunter thing. You could do like D&D fantasy Blade with this.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think Justice League, because I often At least it's how I run D&D. I often think about the player party as like a team of superheroes, because realistically, early on, maybe not so much, but once you start passing level 10 upwards, like you're getting to the power level where you're significantly stronger than 99% of the people you pass in the street. Like you're basically at superhero level. You're at that point, you're like maybe like the defenders at level 10, and then level 15 upwards, you are 100% the Avengers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like when you take that element and that kind of structure, and then you include the horror aspect to it, Justice League Dark, that's exactly what you have. You have the magic, sometimes demonic, investigating supernatural thing, kind of. Yeah. That'd be a great campaign to run. It's all horror, and then you were like, you guys are a team of Ghostbusters essentially.
Yeah, if you want to go even more like hardcore into the edgy horror stuff, then you could do if you're and stick with the DC thing, you could do a Dark Knight's Metal inspired campaign, because that's all the dark multiverse. And oh man, the Joker who laughs would be a spectacular D&D villain.
He would. He'd be like a lich or something.
Oh, 100% he's a lich. He's 100%. He's a lich. Yeah.
With his what's the word I'm looking for? His like insane ravenous robins on chains, like pit bulls or something like that. Yeah. Oh,
Mr. Worldwide.
You could take, you know how like The Walking Dead, Michonne had the two zombies that follow her. Totally. She took their lower jaws and stuff. You can imagine the Joker who laughs as a lich. With two zombies that are like missing their lower jaws in a kind of similar fashion, where he just keeps them around as little guard dogs or something.
Very fucking cool. But just to go over the rest of the stuff that we do have for Van Richten's, because there is actually a lot of really cool stuff. Like you were saying there's like a bunch of new horror themed monsters that will probably cover hopefully cover a lot of the horror themed greats. I'd love to see, like, I know we have oozes, but you know, like the blob that came from space and ate everybody. I would love like if either one of the domains was like a 1950s Americana style town that's invaded by a blob from outer space and you have to fight it off. That would be so fun. But I think that's just me loving that like really old school corny B-movie horror shit, like it came from outer space, you know.
I really want they kept quoting The Thing whenever they were talking about Icewind Dale, and I really wanted I was hoping, because they said there was going to be 100+ monsters in that, and there technically was, but a lot of them were like reskinned, like snow rabbits and snowy owlbears and stuff. I really wanted there to be some equivalent monster where it's like it has some really weird mechanics, and maybe every time it kills something or reduces something to 0 hit points, it consumes it, and then regains health points, and then maybe when it's above 50 health points it's size medium, and when it's above 100 health points it's size large, and then it can keep consuming, and you could do a really cool encounter where it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger every time it kills off one of the, I don't know, maybe you go out with a bunch of soldiers or town watchmen, and they're the fodder to be eaten up by the creature.
I want something really like that. That'd be really cool. That's like combining the Thing and the blob from outer space, and you run it through 10 towns then. So like as you're going around, it's consuming the town, and by the time it's killed everyone in one town is the size of a town, and it's like coming towards the rest of them, and you have to like slowly evacuate people out while it's approaching.
Doppelgangers are good like that for that kind of paranoia element.
Mark Humes did a doppelganger thing he did an Among Us one shot, because I was part of his Patreon for a while, and he put that up. It was an Among Us one shot, and he started out like a doppelganger, like one of the imposters in Among Us. It was really fun. Other really cool shit that we were going to get in there as well is apparently we'll get some like horror themed or like Van Helsing, Van Richten themed magic items as well, which like that immediately brought to mind. It's a terrible movie, but the Hugh Jackman Van Helsing had some really cool gadgets in it.
Take that fucking back. It's not a terrible movie. I love that movie.
All right, I'll take it back. It's a pretty trash movie.
It's terrible. It's terribly brilliant.
I'm a huge fan
automatic crossbow.
Yeah, okay, that's what I mean though. I love the automatic crossbow. I love the doesn't he have like electrified shuriken?
Something like that. Yeah. I know that like basically he is like a blood hunter essentially, or like a ranger, monster hunter or slayer or something like that. And then he has his sidekick who's a monk, like a Christian monk. Yeah. But then he's like a Christian monk / artificer. So he's gonna be like a cleric, artificer, multi-class.
Just a forge cleric.
Or Forge Cleric works so well. Yes, absolutely, yeah. And then he improves all of your Ranger Bloodhunter's armor and stuff like that. Yeah, it'd be so good.
Yeah, and like I think with they were saying like with one Dark Domains being more lighthearted, you could actually totally run like a Hugh Jackman Van Helsing style campaign where you have to go up through Dracula's tower, and the mini bosses are the Wolfman, Frankenstein, a mummy, and then the final fight is. Oh man, that would be a lot of fun. That would be a lot of fun.
That would be really, really good.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm so down. I love I would love to see some like Castlevania style like magic items come through, stuff like the Morning Star Whip, or like they've a lot of just really cool gear in that show. I absolutely love that show. But I think as well, it's just like it's animated so well that even when they're just using like a regular sword and a whip, it just looks badass as hell.
Yeah, I love the animation that show is absolutely. It's like even like what's her name? The caster
Cypher.
Cypher. She had the way she casts spells, the hand gestures she does.
She's such a sorcerer. It's so cool.
Oh, and like she's a sorcerer, or she's like a really high powered like evocation wizard.
Yeah.
Because she can do some insane fire and ice spells.
Oh, that one where like she's fighting the guy and she's like trying to chop him in half with the sheet of ice, and then he runs up it to try and get her, and she just goes like that and makes it stand upwards and cut him in half. Yeah. Oh man, that entire scene is like is exactly what I imagine in my head when it's like a final D&D battle and the party is taking on a group of enemies. I fucking highly recommend that show. That's one of the best things to ever come on Netflix in my opinion.
Oh, it's so good. Definitely watch it. There's some like
particularly for horror inspiration. If I want to try and run like a horror themed campaign, I want it to feel like that Castlevania show.
Who's the guy? Actually, what are the two guys, the human guys that worked for Dracula?
Oh, they were his forge masters. They were basically necromancers that made all his demons and his like zombie.
And they like turned dead bodies into like demon creatures to serve him and stuff. In the most recent season, one of the guys is like off by himself, just making his own army, and I'm like, that is some great inspiration for like for a D&D big bad, you know?
Hell yes.
Just this army of the dead, and every town it consumes becomes hundreds of more, undead creatures, and he's just it's one guy churning all of them out and just sicking them on the world.
So cool. I love like that show does so much right about gothic horror that I would actually say that's one I've taken a lot of inspiration, but I would recommend anyone if they're doing a gothic horror thing, give like the first season of Castlevania a quick look. I think there's 4 episodes in the first season. They're 20 minutes. You can like just over an hour. You watch the whole thing, and it sets such a good tone for gothic horror.
Yeah, something about the first season I like in particular, and something I think really pairs super well with gothic horror is like a pseudo Christian element to it.
Yes, the Judeo-Christian mythos is like perfect for gothic horror.
Yeah, and it counters the gothic horror element so well, but I think it can also be like something that can also kind of encourage the horror element even further. So obviously, typically when we're talking about D&D, you have your demons, and they're all bad, they're scary, and then you have your paladins and your clerics and stuff like that. But the thing they do in the first season of Castlevania on Netflix is that they have the people in the church are kind of so fanatical and stuff like that they burn people at the stake, and it's actually it's a woman being burned at the stake that Dracula cared about that spurs him into absolutely hating humans and deciding none of you deserve to live anymore. But I feel like you could have these really fanatical church paladins and stuff that could also be antagonists within your world. And there's something definitely very unsettling to me about this idea of a fanatical following where you think you're so right, you think you're doing the work of God and stuff like that. Or whatever patron you follow in your pantheon and stuff. You think you're doing the right thing and you think you're fighting for justice, but actually your justice twisted and as messed up as the monsters you fight. And then the party could be caught between the two of them. And like if you're going to encourage a horror element, taking because if the church is there as an ally, that makes things a bit less scary when you have someone to back you up. But if there's 2 sides to the fight, and both of them don't like you, who is in the middle, your D&D party, because they're like, you're not proper followers of the church, and the monsters just want to tear you apart, then you're in a position where, we have no allies, we're basically all by ourselves, and that encourages the horror element, I think.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's also just like a Christian, like a religious order is always just like a big trope in horror as well, particularly anything involving demons. It's like always the first thing is, oh, we gotta get a priest or someone to look into this, or like, oh, it's like cast this demon out from our child. So yeah, I think that, yeah, absolutely, like Castlevania, particularly for how it sets that up in that, like, the church are presenting this like false piety as a front, and then that all crumbles down over the course of the few episodes. Like, that's such good storytelling, and yeah, just would highly recommend.
And anything, I just think having that world where, and Castlevania does it very well. There isn't a lot of good people in that world. Even the regular farmers and townsfolk, they're not particularly great people. Like the main character,
Trevor.
What's his face? Trevor. He's a monster hunter. That's his family's profession. They hunt monsters and vampires, and they kill these things to protect people. But as soon as people in like the first episode find out that he's a member of this family, they were kind of shunned by the church and stuff like that, despite doing good things. Because again, making the church the antagonist as well, another antagonist. When they found out that he's a monster hunter, they treat him like shit and they try to beat him up. And I'm like, encouraging the idea that you are on your own, you are this island in a sea of darkness. I think it makes the whole setting very, very grim,
Totally.
and just I think it's a good atmosphere to set up within your D&D campaign if you're running anything like Curse of Strahd or anything like that. I feel like even I've seen a lot of people run Curse of Strahd on streams, and I feel like what they often do is they have people within the towns and the villages within Barovia are kind of welcoming and kind of, people you can talk to and stuff like that. I feel like if you really want to drive home that this is a dark, unforgiving world, have them be rude or suspicious of everyone and disapproving,
Like every monster movie you see where the monster hunter arrives into town, everyone they arrive into town. It's usually like a carriage comes across the screen, clears the screen, our main character stands in the middle of the screen. Everyone in the town notices who he is, and they all go and shut their windows.
Yeah, like a western where the bandits and the sheriff walk up and they all rush inside their houses.
But that's such a trope in horror film. So yeah, and particularly if you're playing something like Barovia, where like Strahd is their lord, like they have to live under this person. So like why would they?
They may not want your help. They might be like, don't go near him. If you start messing things up, he's going to be angry at us as well.
Exactly.
Please don't try to help. We don't want your help.
Yeah, if these people see like Strahd as this like immovable, like undefeatable force in their lives, and some random is going to come in and try to challenge him, like they're not going to want to bring that level of attention to themselves by helping you. So yeah, it's absolutely natural for stuff like that to happen.
That's something very interesting about Strahd, is that he is very much a force of nature. He is.
Yeah.
He's not a man. He's not a single being. He is technically, but he is Barovia, and the fact that he is so interwoven into the entirety of the world. If you ever watch like Batman Begins, he talks about using fear to fight back against criminals, and he says, as a man, I can be beaten, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, as this elemental force, you can't quite fight that. You can't fight an idea, you can't fight an elemental force. You can kill a man can be stabbed and killed or shot and killed, but a force or an idea or something like that, these are more broad concepts, and I think making your bad guy or making your monster like that really enforces the idea of, we can't just walk into a room and shoot the thing.
Absolutely.
There's more to it than that. It's a more omnipresent.
Absolutely. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit, because I just wanted to get through the last couple of things that are in the book, and then
I feel like you're trying to move on to a list of stuff, and I keep jumping in and going, here's a bunch of stuff.
But it's all good stuff, so it doesn't matter. It's cool.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So the last thing, the last two big things that I wanted to talk about, from that were in it, were so there's the dark gifts system. And then they also are something, I think we'll talk about this first and then get back onto the dark gifts, is something I think it's really important that they are including is tools and guidelines for like putting horror and like horrific situations into your game safely, and to make sure that like you're not overstepping the line and making people feel like genuinely uncomfortable to be in that situation. Like there is a level of discomfort with horror that comes with the territory, but everyone has a line, and they're saying they've announced that they're going to incorporate into this like tools for DMs to basically be able to set up the thing so where everyone can be scared but not like go overboard and like hit stuff that maybe like will trigger someone if they've experienced something particularly awful in their own life.
That's a really, really good idea.
Yeah.
I'm maybe a little guilty of this at times, because I know I do this to you, because I know you were thinking about snakes.
Okay, but like That's different though, like, 'cause, yeah, like you did run us through that fucking snake jungle in hell, and I was desperately uncomfortable the entire time. But like that's just me, like that's an irrational fear for me, and that I know like I live in Ireland. The probability of me running into a snake that will kill me is so low. Like I know
St. Patrick took care of all that for you. Don't worry about it.
yeah, definitely it was him in that climate. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, like what I mean is like that's a level of like it's a fear I have, but it's not something that like overtakes my life. Whereas like if someone has like a particular fear like claustrophobia that they would get really really bad in, and like with D&D and stuff like that, like you might not want to push that too far. You might actually like trigger an episode somewhere or something like that.
Or like a human element to it as well, where like
Yes.
if off the top of my head, let's just say for example there is an abusive partner or an abusive parent in this thing, and it's meant to be dark, it's meant to be grim,
Yeah.
and that very much would be on brand. But if this, you don't necessarily know that someone in the group hasn't experienced that in life, and you don't want to be, like you said, pulling on those strings or pulling on
Yeah,
that thread.
you don't want to make people basically relive some of their worst memories at the table, because but at the end of the day, even though you're there to be scared when you're using horror, people go to horror to be scared because it's fun to be scared sometimes.
You want your character to be uncomfortable and to be scared, but not necessarily the player to be really genuinely
Yeah.
fearful. Like,
Yeah, you want to like it's the fun scared. It's this like I'm watching a scary movie scared, not the like I'm walking through a dark city at night and I've heard footsteps behind me scared.
yeah, because that's much more real. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm actually that's very nice to know that they're including something like that.
It's really cool, and like I think just in terms of like my own philosophy on that, I think like I didn't do anything particular for my guys when I was running into a horror, because I have 4 players and 3/4 of them I've known for like over 2 or 3 years. At this stage, one of them I've known for like over 10 years. So I'm pretty comfortable with like what I know about like the horror they like and what level of horror they can keep it to. And as well, when I was writing it, I mostly just adapted the themes of horror and spooky stuff. I didn't go all out for like people are getting like disemboweled and ripped apart and zombie hordes and all that.
Yeah.
So like I think my main word is know your group, tailor your horror to your group. You can still be scary without going overboard on someone.
Yep. You could even you could even go as far if you really want, especially if you're playing with people who aren't, maybe a lot of people are new to the game, or
Yes.
or
if it's
they're
people you don't know.
you know but don't know well, or
Yeah.
something like that. You could totally make out a list and like, look, here's a whole bunch of horror stuff we could do. Can you guys, like, I'll give a copy of this to everyone. If there's anything on this list you don't like, and not necessarily that you're going to include all of it,
Yeah.
but that they can veto certain themes and certain situations, and then you can go, right, okay, so I gave them 20 things that I'm considering using, and there's 3 things here that 1 or 2 people aren't comfortable with. That's great. I still have 17 things I can work with for an effective horror, and you're not spoiling anything in particular. You can be vague about what the list is, but as long as I think people have an input then, and we know where our lines are, where our boundaries are.
Exactly. And cool. So to get back onto the dark gifts then, which I think are really cool. So dark gifts mechanically are going to work like I think like were they called godly
boons?
Godly boon. No, from Theros, piety rewards from Theros.
Oh, okay.
That's basically what I've seen is how they're going to work mechanically, which is cool. I really like the piety stuff from Theros. I've not introduced it in my game, but in terms of like mechanically how it's set up, I quite enjoy it, and that like you get rewarded for being more aligned with like your specific patron deity or god, and it'll give you like literally like the godly boons from the DMG. Those are really fun to just read through as well. But like some of the Theros ones are really cool. What they've said about the dark gifts will be basically it'll be. It's almost like the setup for a horror movie in itself, or even for like a warlock, in that, yeah, initially you're going to get this dark boon, and initially you're going to be like, this is awesome, this is sweet. But very quickly it's going to monkey's paw on you, and it's going to start being really tragic. And I think what they said about it was something along the lines of, I wrote it down here, it's like, I think it said something along the lines of, it's probably on that article you have there, Conor, but it's like along the lines of the first page, these are the first page of your own personal horror story. Which is just such a great way to put it, because like that could totally be your character origin and why you're thing. Like one night you ran into a demon at the crossroads and unknowingly made a deal, and now your soul is gone, but you've got this special talent, and you're looking for the demon that took your soul.
All right, okay. I was looking here to see if I can see the boons thing. That does sound interesting. I actually don't use any, like I haven't used any of the boons in the DMG. I don't think ever. I haven't used any of the ones in Theros, and obviously haven't used these because they haven't come out yet. But that could be interesting because, like, especially because for you and I, we're playing the game a long time. I need to introduce some new stuff every now and again to keep things fresh for both myself and the players. I did start doing I started doing something similar this campaign, where your character, I started giving you some Battlemaster things, and I equate it to me giving you a magic item. Essentially, it's a little
Pretty
power
much.
thing, but it's something that's inherent to your person. It's not an item that or a thing that you own. So you got a few Battlemaster Maneuvers, and I consider that just to be like a little bump. These could be kind of interesting for, like you said, the monkey's paw effect, where it's like, oh, I get a bonus to this, or I get to do this, or something like that, and that could be really cool at first, especially if you don't tell the players maybe what the negative aspects are, so that down the line, which is always fun. That's the fun of a cursed item. Here's a I don't know, a +3 sword, and it has extra fire damage or something like that, and someone's like, whoa, this is incredible. And then when you start hearing it talk in your head and requesting that you I don't know, stab yourself on the chest and allow it to feed on your soul, you're like, oh, maybe this wasn't a good idea.
When the voice in your head goes, welcome master, my name is Infant Slayer, how may I serve you?
Yeah, exactly. I am Baby Cleaver, the axe.
Hello, I am Mother's Bane.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. A cool little side note I saw on Twitter recently actually is that I feel so bad. I can't remember her last name. Her first name is Sarah. She goes by the Dislocating GM or at Mustang's Art on Twitter. She's the person who designed the combat wheelchair and all the really cool upgrades for it. You may have seen it in Critical Role.
And that Siphon, did I talk about it on the podcast? That Siphon Bloodhunter.
Yes, we did. We talked about that last time.
Where they channel the pain of their chronic injury into like psychic damage. Oh,
yeah.
So fucking
I saw her mention that she's going to be doing like a bunch of like really cool like Van Helsing-esque inspired like steampunk monster hunter gadgets for steampunk like Monster Hunter prosthetics for like disabled PC adventurers to go off monster hunting with. And I just immediately thought of, it's a terrible movie, but have you ever seen Planet Terror?
Oh, the machine gun.
Yeah, the gun leg.
Yeah.
So like you could literally be like an adventurer in a wheelchair, and you could have like a fucking Van Helsing cannon gun, like mini gun thing attached to one of your prosthetics.
Probably one of your knees, like.
Or like Guts in Berserk, he's got like a one arm that's like entirely, it's like an arm off a suit of armor basically. But every so often he tips the wrist down, and like the wrist of the hand of the arm is actually mounted onto a cannon. So he like pulls that down and the cannon mouth is there, and he like fires cannon shot from it. And I was like, oh, that would be so cool.
Alien Resurrection, the 4th film, there's that guy that's on the space station, and like when he gets onto the station, he's in his wheelchair, and everyone, when they're checking security,
yes,
he's like,
that guy, yeah.
It's just my wheelchair. And they're like, okay, let him through. And then later on, he starts pulling all these little coils and pipes and stuff off various parts of his wheelchair, and he goes click 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 click, and he assembles a shotgun when he's fighting the aliens.
I love it.
And he's just, it's like a motorized wheelchair, so he's just cruising around with it. He's got the shotgun in his hand. He's waiting for the alien to come out of the vents.
Oh, it's so great, so great. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention it because like I love like what you did with the combat wheelchair, and like particularly like seeing in action recently with Critical Role and Dagon in Critical Role. Like it's just such a cool concept, and like I love it, and like I'm always a fan of like people being able to see representations of themselves in media.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So like that's super awesome. Like
I love any of the art that I've seen, because a lot of people have done various art of various characters.
There's a mini as well of it. The minis are really cool.
But I love the one that has the cow catcher on the front.
Yes.
And I just picture someone going down a hill and like bowling ball style through a horde of orcs or something like that, and knocking them around the place.
Oh my god, have you seen the one that's got spider legs?
Like speaking of bad films, you read the guy with the spider leg wheelchair in Wild Wild West?
Oh Christ, man! There's a video of Kevin Smith talking about this producer called John Peters, who he met with when he was due to write the script for a Superman movie. And the entire time he's meeting up with him, he meets up with him multiple times, And I'm not going to do the story justice. I would highly recommend everyone watch that because the way Kevin Smith tells it is hilarious. But basically, he meets up with this guy, right, and he runs him through Superman's the story he's written for him. And Kevin Smith is a big comic book guy, so he's been calling him like Superman, Kal-El, the Man of Steel, the Man of Tomorrow, that kind of stuff. And he's like, the guy he's talking to is like, doesn't get it all. He's telling him to strip out all this. He's like, I don't want him in the suit. I don't want him to fly. Where he's not going to go to fucking Krypton. All this kind of, like, just all this weird shit. And it ends up with him like writing, getting Kevin Smith to write a story where Superman goes to the Fortress of Solitude and is like fucking fighting polar bears because he has to fight something. And then like there's a point where he goes like, we need something from the fight though. It's like, he's like, what about a giant spider? And he's like, why? And he's like, spiders are the most vengeful, they're the most like aggressive killers in the insect kingdom. He's like, someone watches too much fucking Discovery Channel. Because anyway, long story short, it didn't end up happening. He goes, but the next summer I went to the cinema to see noted summer blockbuster failure, Wild Wild West, also produced by John Peters. Like, Conor, anyone who's listening to this, go look up Kevin Smith Wild Wild West. It's like a 15-minute clip from where he's just doing a Q&A, and he talks about it. He goes into much more detail than I've gone in there. I literally cried laughing for about 15 minutes straight watching it. It's so funny.
I didn't think I could hear a worse Superman pitch than Zack Snyder, but well, here we are.
I skipped over so much of that story because it's not relevant to the podcast, but like, go and listen to that when we're done recording because it's so funny.
There's that bit, I love that bit. I won't get on too long. There's that bit in Wild Wild West where Will Smith is about to be, he's in the South and a bunch of people decide they want to hang him.
Yeah.
And he stands up on the back of a cart and he's like, I mean, what's the difference between us? I mean, like, I mean, redneck, what does that even mean? Number one, red is the color passion, it's the color fire, it means you have heart. Neck. All right, moving on. And he doesn't have an option for neck, and it's very funny. His whole speech immediately crumbles. He goes, fire, passion, color red, yeah, neck. So yeah.
It's great. Good. I thought we could wrap up the episode by just maybe talking about people we think do horror well, and then maybe like some examples of how we've used horror in the campaign. So like like I said, you just ran us through a cosmic horror campaign. So do you want to kind of tell the people a little bit of how, like, what you were kind of thinking about coming into this, and like obviously don't get like spoilery for future campaign stuff, but like whatever you kind of can talk about how you like set that up and went into it. I think that could be cool.
Yeah, I think okay, this is going to sound really bad because I've just finished a cosmic horror thing. I won't name any particular books or anything that I've read or watched or anything like that recently. I'm kind of learning over this is a bold statement. End of my YouTube life here. I don't like the Cthulhu mythos. No, it's just nonsensical, and like, I get that's kind of the part of it is that it's not meant to make sense, and that confusing element is part of the horror. Like, you don't understand what's going on, and that's part of it. I totally get that. I'm learning more and more. I don't give a shit about the Yith or the various elder gods or whatever. I'm like, I feel like you could make a much more what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of concise and I don't know. I just feel like all the monsters are so random for the sake of being random. I don't feel like they fit into places. They're such odd shapes and such odd beings. I'm like, honestly, regardless of whether you are putting this tentacle monster in who is from this one elder god and has a particular religion tied to it and they worship this and blah blah blah, or you put this other tentacle monster, it doesn't make a difference. They're all the same. They're all just tentacle monsters. I think again, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the Cthulhu mythos, but I have consumed a considerable amount of the content surrounding the Lovecraftian horror and stuff like that. And so much of Lovecraft's writing is Oh, and there was this horrible elder god. Oh, what did it look like? Oh, it was too scary, too scary.
Beyond imagining.
Oh, you couldn't. I couldn't even write about it. It's too scary for you to even comprehend. That's how scary and horrible and monstrous. And they're like, oh god, that sounds horrible. Yeah, it was for whatever it looked like. I can't say. And then what about the other monster you talked? Oh, it was horrible. I can't even tell you what it looked like because your mind wouldn't comprehend. Okay, we get it.
I think there's a
we get it. You're a lazy writer. Okay.
I think there's a good point we made as well of like cosmic horror and Cthulhu mythos are not interchangeable terms. Like
no,
cosmic horror is the overarching categorization of it. Cthulhu mythos is a part of cosmic horror. For anyone who's unsure exactly what cosmic horror means, it's basically the idea that not only is the universe does the universe not care about humanity, it's not aware of its existence, and if it were to come into existence with it, come into contact with with the existence of humanity, it would not end well for humanity. Humanity would either fall into complete madness or be destroyed just by the experience of seeing some of these elder gods or these massive cosmic horrors. It's the idea that there are veils between our world, or veils of perception between our world and the reality of the world, and there are things out there in our universe, deep old buried things that are there but we just can't perceive them, and the only thing keeping us safe from them is the fact that neither of us can perceive each other. It's that kind of an idea.
Yeah, it does a lot to belittle humanity as a whole in order to make you feel minuscule and unimportant in this vast sea of chaos and evil. And like you said, it's not even that we're safe where we are; it's just that they haven't noticed.
Yeah,
and that's kind of the scary part. And I think that's a huge. Don't get me wrong. I think there's massive value in cosmic horror, and in another. There's a game called Control, and that came out in the last couple of years, and that is the genre of it is called New Weird, which is it's a subgenre of cosmic horror, but it dips into some of the same stuff, and it's that mind-boggling, confusing, you don't know what's happening, and you're not gonna know. It confuses you. It makes you feel stupid, or like you're walking around in the dark, or you're walking blind, or whatever. It wants to make you feel small. I think there's a huge importance, and I think there's a lot of value in that. I just happen to think that the Lovecraftian Cthulhu mythos is just a little bit too weird. It's too I don't know, maybe I'm being contradictory. Maybe I'm saying that there's value in not understanding, and then I'm saying I don't totally get the Cthulhu mythos, and I'm being contradictory myself.
No, there's sorry, go on. There's valid criticisms you could have of the Cthulhu mythos. There's a lot of them you can do purely about the kind of views that Lovecraft held himself. Man was an out racist,
but horrifically so.
I think when it comes to cosmic horror,
that's the real horror.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, the real But when it comes to cosmic horror, I think you have so much room to play with, as long as you stick to that core tenet of the universe is not only unknowing of our existence, but actively uncaring and would be harmful to us if it really interacted with us. The unknown of the universe, that is. I think if you kind of keep that concept in mind, you can do a really good focus thing, and I think that's something that you did really very much felt as we got deeper and when it became apparent that it was a cosmic horror related thing with madness and nightmares and all this kind of stuff, that it wasn't just your standard D&D quest where it's a big bad monster, where it's this is a curse. There's a not necessarily a curse, but almost this is something that has infested this area and will spread, and particularly at the end of the combat when we had beaten the monster, and the scene you described afterwards, I thought that was chef's kiss cosmic horror stuff.
So basically the scene you're talking about is you guys fought, it was a beholder was the end baddie, which may seem very typical D&D, but I put a bit of a spin on it where you guys were in a place called Ulthref, which was an inverted I don't have drow in my world in the same sense. I have earth elves, and they're grey instead of purple, and a few other changes to they don't worship Lolth. There's a few other things there, but they basically they do live underground in these cities similar to drow. And this city Ulthref is mounted to the ceiling of a cavern. It's really, really vast, but it's been long since abandoned, and there's some sort of evil in the city that by proximity is causing a city on the surface to have these horrific nightmares. And you guys, a couple of you guys experienced them, and they cause you to have levels of exhaustion. Some people die because they can't sleep for days on end. There was a couple of deaths in Temerai, the city you're in. Some people were just going into such horrific shock while they slept that the dream killed them. The nightmare killed them. So you guys set off on a quest to go down underground and find out what was happening down there. And when you got to the city, it was kind of bathed in this really sickly, eerie yellow glow. Not a warm yellow, like a washed out kind of yellow. And the whole thing had like a fog. Despite the fact that it was on the ceiling, there was a fog surrounding it as well, which, you know, normally fog drops. So you went up there and you realize that the fog is really dense, makes it hard to see. The kind of omnipresent yellow light doesn't seem to have a source. And as a result, shadows behave weirdly. And I thought in my head when I was describing it, I was trying to get the idea that, like, I was telling you that you look at certain buildings and it looks like the shadows coming from this way, but if you look over the thing right next to it, it looks like the shadows coming from below. And as a result, then it's like, because shadows don't line up, I thought that would be mentally very confusing. Like, if you visualize that, I thought that I think if you saw that in real life, your brain would go, that doesn't make sense, and you'd feel wrong for looking at it.
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to go for there. And you guys had I also made it so that there was certain things within there that were confusing. Or one thing I want to do a lot in that is I wanted to take power away from you guys. And again, like I said, making you feel minuscule, making you feel like you don't have a choice, making you feel like what you're doing is way bigger than you, is something that I wanted to incorporate into it, because I feel like that fits in with the cosmic horror. So when you guys are walking around, we talked about this. I don't think we talked about this on the podcast. I think we talked about this after the podcast last week, if I'm not mistaken. So there was like 3 things I did in that while you were wandering around this foggy Earth Elf city looking for the source of the evil. The first thing was you started looking at some inscriptions on the wall.
Yes.
And Aerith, who is the blood hunter in the party, looked at some of them, and I had to make an investigation check. And I wasn't planning this at all, but he did give me an opportunity to mess with him a little bit. So I described it. You see these things, and it looks like elves, and they're all holding their hands up in reverence, or reverence. And you see that the direction they're holding their hands is to this. I had this symbol that's a recurring symbol of the game, which is it's a single eye with a figure of 8, like double pupil, and then like 3 tentacles coming off it in a Triskelion format. And this is a recurring theme or a symbol of a cult called the Seekers. And I told him, you see the symbol and the elves appear to be worshipping it. And he went, oh shit. And then he says, I turned to Arkham, who is also a kind of Arkham is a warlock of the Great Old Ones. So he's kind of intimately related with this whole cosmic horror thing we're doing. And he goes, you should probably look at this. And then I started describing the exact same way with the same pace and the same kind of rhythm to it. And I go, and you look, and you see the elves, and the symbol that is inscribed on the stone right above them appears to be that of a sun. And everyone paused, and I could see Gavin on the camera, because we were playing online. I could see Gavin on the camera mouthing, motherfucker, because he realized I was messing with him. And then they kind of played it out that, he was like, yeah, it's a sun. And he goes, yeah, forget about it. I think maybe I'm just a bit tired or something like that. And they kind of play it off like they would in a movie or something like that.
Yeah.
There was another point later on, and I think everyone missed this, but it was kind of fine. I had the party members at the front and the back. So you're going single file as you wander through the streets. I had the person at the front and the back both make checks. Someone made like a 6 or a 7, quite low, and someone got like a 17 or an 18. And then I went, right, okay. And I kind of just moved on, like neither of you had seen the thing. I wanted you to go, what did we see? And I was going to go, oh, don't worry about it. Because I wanted you to think you had missed something.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kind of message you again, but no one picked up on that one, unfortunately. And then you got to this vault, this other building. And while 3 of you were inside raiding the place, Mike's character, Wabu, went out to the door. And he's like, I had to make a perception check. He was keeping watch. And I tell him, yeah, you have a look around. You don't see any movement or anything like that. You kind of lean around the door to take a better look around the corner. And as you put your hand on the door frame, you feel something cold and sticky, and you pull it back, and your hand is covered with this stringy, like translucent kind of whitish slime. And he was like, "Oh," and then he goes, "Oh no." And he said, "Is there anything above me?" And he thought I was doing an alien thing.
Yeah.
And he looked up, and I'm like, "You look up, and there's nothing there." And he went, and then again, this is the best part of this, is that I didn't do this at all. This was all Mike, and the paranoia just sank in. So Mike went, "Oh no, is this a mimic?" And then you, because you and I had been talking about it in Tasha's Cauldron, you went, "Oh fuck, myself and Conor were talking about the mimic colony like a week ago." And then everyone at the same time went, "Oh shit, we gotta get out of here," because he thought the building was a mimic. And I knew in my head that slime wasn't even real. I knew nothing about that was real. But you let your own paranoia take over for a second.
Oh yeah.
So you guys ran out of the building. Wabu, like, he couldn't speak because he stared into a hell portal. It's a whole thing. But he grabbed his weapons and he clanged them together, and he tried to signal you guys, and he pointed to the door, and he's like, "We have to go, we have to go, we have to go." And you all ran outside, and you waited outside the building. And even actually he asked me, like, "Does the building look strange?" And I had to make a perception check, and I knew the result didn't matter. So, and I think he rolled quite well. And I said, "There's something about the shape of this building doesn't look quite right." And I'm just full of shit. I mean nothing by that. I'm just playing on his own paranoia. And you guys run outside, and he goes to point at his hand, because he can't speak. He's pointed his hand to show you the slime, and you just see his perfectly clean hand. And then you all realize, "Oh, Conor's fucking with us again." Okay. And then you went back inside to keep looting. But stuff like that, I thought, like, that's really good, just to kind of. I wanted to take power away from me. I want, because if you know what's going on, if like, even in a situation like that where you roll high on the dice, I'm going to tell you something that might mess with your head. It might be true. It might be completely false. I might, in the case of Mike, let your own imagination run rampant. But again, the dice roll, I've even wrote in my notes. I said, have the players make a perception check. The roll doesn't matter, is what I wrote in my actual notes. I wanted you to roll. There was no DC, no nothing. There was nothing to be seen. If someone got a natural 20, I wouldn't have cared. I would have kept rolling like you'd missed it, or like something happened but you didn't pick up on it, or something like that. So that was one thing I did. And I thought that really got the creepy element going in the city.
Yeah, when you can't trust your own senses, it's such a like. I'd hesitate to call it body horror, because body horror generally involves the severe I don't want to say disfigurement, but the severe, like, distortion. That's what I mean. Severe distortion of the human form. Shit with stuff like that, be like Hellraiser, would be very body horror. But like it's that it is that idea of that, like, you cannot trust your own senses to tell you what's going on. Like, it's something that will so put you on the edge, particularly when you already know for a fact you are in a dangerous area. It's like, okay, so I'm in a dangerous area, and now I can't trust what I'm sensing. So let's see how this goes.
Yeah. Again, I'm taking. I think I did later on when you started getting closer to the central building, which is where you kind of guessed the yellow light was coming from, and the source of this, whatever this evil is. I had some of you make checks, and then the ones that failed heard a voice in their head, and it was the voice of this being, and you didn't know what it was at the time. And it was kind of like you knew it was watching you. It was telling you stuff that you had done elsewhere in the city, so you knew it has been observing you. And then it was like it told you. It didn't have a name, so you said, "What's your name?" And he says, "My name, me. I don't. You can call me me." So you were referring, and then he said, when you said, "What if we decide just not to go near you?" And he said, "Oh, all roads lead to me." And like, I knew in that moment then, and like, I know that even if you guys go to a crossroads and go 4 different ways, I'll say that I would have told you that you ran through the fog for 2 or 3 minutes only to all arrive at the exact same point, because he is directing you. And again, I'm taking agency away from the players on purpose to make you feel like you don't have power in the situation, to make it feel creepier. Because again, if you're a player, agency is don't get me wrong, it's the best part of the game, is the fact you have so much agency. But if you take that away from a player, or you kind of steer them a certain way that they don't really have a choice, something like that. That impending nature of whatever that darkness is can really, I think, set a tone as well. And then eventually you got there and you found out that the fog itself was the beholder. He was a beholder made of fog and yellow light. And you ended up fighting him. You took 52 points of damage from a disintegration ray, I believe.
Half health me in one go. I clenched is how I would describe myself during that fight.
And then to get me back, Martin decided he was going to action surge. He used his giant might action surge in one round and did 95 points of damage.
96.
I apologize. 96 points of damage, which did that's a solid more than a third of its health you took away in a single round.
I didn't get to hit it for like 3 though, so it kind of evens out.
Yeah, it's true. And but I love that as well because as I know, a thing that Beholder can do is that it has the anti-magic cone, and I did that, and that made your attacks. It made it made pretty much everyone's attack. It made Arkham pretty much useless because he's a warlock and it's a sorcerer. Almost everything he does, if not everything he does, is magical. So he was unable to do so much for the fight. And that's a different kind of fear. That's the same kind of fear that you can have going up against a dragon. If you feel like you're woefully underpowered, but to go into a fight thinking, all right, let's do what we normally do, and then thinking, oh, half our stuff doesn't work because of this thing. Aerith had elemental arrows that only worked part of the time. You had a fire flame rune thing on your spear that gave it extra damage, but that flame rune fizzled out as soon as you got into the anti-magic cone. There was loads and loads of stuff like that. And I think just the idea of the Beholder being so chaotic as well, you guys being underpowered and knowing this is a powerful creature, instills a more less of that omnipresent fear, a much more direct fear of this one creature, which like I said, it can be a Beholder, it can be a dragon, it could be something like a Yeti if you're only level 1 players. It doesn't have to be something particularly scary as long as there's a power differential, and that anti-magic cone really helps to hammer that home. So yeah, luckily you guys came out on top. I was quite happy about that. I didn't want any deaths, but Beholders, you roll randomly on those eye rays. You can't always help it.
To be fair, if it was anyone but me who got hit by that disintegration ray, game over.
Wabu might have been okay, but it was 10d8 damage, and you took 52, so that's more than half the damage you ended up getting, which is hefty. But I mean, like, you have 101 health. You've leveled up since. You have 101 health at the time. Aerith had 70 something. Arkham had 60 something. He could have very easily been one-shotted by that. And actually, I think Aerith had to burn all his hit dice as well, because I had him fall into a trap where he failed and dropped to 0 hit points as a result. So he burnt all his hit dice and he wasn't back up to full scratch even after using all of them. So yeah, I mean, like, it could have been a very, very hairy situation. But I was quite happy with how that went, and I said it to Dan before when I kind of started this. When Dan told me he wanted to play a Great Hold 1 Warlock and he wanted some sort of cosmic horror elements to it, I was totally down. I was kind of looking at a few games that I've played before and stuff like that. One thing I love the idea of is and it's not at all a horror game, but it's a creepy element to it, is in Mass Effect. The main antagonists are called the Reapers, and they're just these big technological. They're ships, they're 2 kilometers long, and they're robots, but they fly around like spaceships. And they have this thing called indoctrination, where when you're in proximity to them, they just let off the signal, and it's undetectable by any sort of known sensor, but they know it's there because they can see the results. And people will start doing things and behaving certain ways, and over time, it's very Lovecraftian in its nature. Over time, it starts kind of manipulating people to do its bidding, and it can be super, super subtle, to the point where you might be doing something and someone will go, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" And you'll go, "Oh, I don't know." And that was one of the inspirations I wanted. I wanted people. I had it happen with Arkham earlier on the campaign, where I told him he had a bad dream about wandering through a hallway, and then digging in the ground with his bare hands, and then vomiting up something, which I think is kind of body horror-ish as well.
Yeah, totally.
He vomited up like I think I described them as like 4 lumps that were like potato sized, and he vomited up a few lumps, and then I think the dream kind of fizzled out. I told him he wakes up in his bed, and he's cold and he's soaking wet, but it's not sweat. He's actually wet from water, and he looks at his hands, and under his fingernails and his hands are caked in mud. And I think at that point he realized that wasn't a dream. I did something last night, and I don't know what, because I actually have mud, like dirt in my fingernails from digging. And again, taking agency away, I think made that creepy as well, because you don't know what you did, but it's very very real, you know.
Yeah, it's that sense of like your body is not your own.
And I really tried to hammer that home early on in the arc of this of that story, because I wanted it to be like, look, you made a pact with something very powerful. If you think it's gonna let you potter around and do whatever you want, you got another thing coming, you know. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this is going. I have more things planned to extrapolate further on this arc as we get further on. For now, you guys are heading back to the surface for the first time in in only a few days in game, but literally months in the real world, because we didn't play for a while between certain sessions. So it'll be the first time you're back on the surface, interacting with non-cursed elves and not horrific aberrations that want to consume your flesh.
I'm so looking forward to like sunlight and the breeze and being able to tell time.
That's something as well. I think I think the expansiveness I tried to come up with for the Underdark was another thing as well. I wanted it to feel vast and empty at times.
Definitely,
because
definitely
again, I think a huge cavern where you were this tiny little creature in it, and you don't know how long the cavern goes on for, or anything like that, or something I often describe when you're in the Underdark as well, because dark vision for the most part is only 60 feet, depending on classes, subclasses, whatever. Mostly it's 60 feet. Beyond that is just black. It's just darkness. You cannot see beyond that. You don't, and I love the idea of standing in an area like on a stone ground in some sort of cavern, but all the walls are hundreds of feet away, and the ceilings maybe a couple hundred feet away. So it just looks like you're standing on a stone floor, and this is black all around you. You don't know how expansive it is. And again, that goes towards the cosmic horror thing of making you feel small and minuscule in this world.
Yeah, it's the same idea like why some people find the sea creepy, because like, yeah, you're swimming on the top, but that goes all the way down, and you don't know what's down there.
I actually have a thing about swimming in deep water. That is very much like that. I'm happy enough to swim around, maybe up to like, I don't know, 5 or 6 meters, maybe a bit more. Do you know what it is actually? It's seaweed. I can swim at the beach above sand all the time, but I cannot swim above seaweed because I don't know what's lurking in the seaweed.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. I got to play with a little bit of that with my underwater stuff, but yeah, you can totally make the sea feel alien as hell. And if you want to bring your cosmic horror in that way, like even in our own world, like we're aware of the Mariana Trench's existence and the fact that there are shit down there that can only live down there and has been down there for like as long as
millennia.
Yeah, and has specifically adapted that. And like it's not only the idea that like I'm swimming here and like what I'm swimming in is big enough to encompass and allow the like creatures multiple times my size to live and prosper in here. And I know already that there are some horrific shit way far down, and how we haven't even gotten like we don't how far down can we go? What's down there? That's the whole thing. And like that's the same kind of thing with cosmic horror, in that like humans, the way we look at the universe is us centric. It's like we are the advanced civilization that's going out and searching through societies, but like it's the idea that we don't really know what the universe is like and what's out there, and it's just that like maddening idea of how small and insignificant we really are, and I love that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a large, what you mentioned about the ocean being so vast and so unexplored, and these undiscovered creatures that could be completely alien to us, living at the very bottom of like the Mariana Trench and stuff like that. I think that's probably why Lovecraft incorporated so much of the sea and fish people and stuff like that into his world, because again, even like at the time and even now to a degree, like there's still a lot of the ocean that is unexplored, and a lot of creatures that are that have not been what's the word, like categorized or discovered or named or anything like that. And I think it's again, it all comes back to that element of the unknown, of not understanding, not knowing, and as a result feeling very, very small, very, very small fish, big pond, you know?
Yeah, cool. And I think we could just maybe like finish off by just like running through a couple of people very quickly that we think do horror well. So like the OG Stephen King, like the movie adaptations are hit and miss, but the actual books are phenomenal. Like that man creates a horrifying and like completely investing world like nearly every time. He's just so talented at taking the great talent of Stephen King is taking the ordinary and making it terrifying.
Was Stephen King, did he do The Mist?
I'm not, I think so. Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, I've seen the Mist is very cool again from like a monster, because again that comes back to the cosmic thing of you don't know what's in the mist, you can't see it. It's a monster that lives in not being seen, you know. And I think that's horrifying. This is probably controversial, I really liked Dark Tower, the movie.
I haven't seen it. I heard it was crap, so I didn't watch it.
Okay, I'm sure if I was a proper Stephen King fan, and I'm not, that's the thing, I'm sure if I was, I wouldn't have liked it. I didn't really think of it being particularly horror-ish, and maybe that's probably why it failed. And I'm sure the books are far superior, but I love the idea of this interdimensional cosmic demon hunting gunslinger. It's Idris Elba was just badass with a couple of like revolvers and stuff. That just got me. It's not at all horror. I just like Idris Elba wielding a couple of revolvers like a badass.
Is there anyone that jumps to mind as like someone who you think is particularly talented in like the world of horror when you're thinking about like people maybe you could look to for inspiration for like a specific kind of campaign or domain?
I could probably name more so not so much people or writers in particular. You're definitely more involved in that world than I am. I don't even really watch much horror or anything. I'm not a person who enjoys horror films. I have a what's the word? A morbid curiosity about horror. I don't enjoy it, but I'm fascinated by it.
That's what I started off like too. Don't worry, you'll get there.
Oh, maybe I'll get there. So, like Dead Space. Actually,
yeah, Dead Space is great.
Actually,
we've talked about Dead Space before.
Yeah. In coming back to the thing about the Reapers and that indoctrination effect, there's a similar thing like that in Dead Space
with the marker.
With the markers, yeah. And I feel like again, it's the not knowing your mind is your own, or feeling like, and the markers in Dead Space are like crazy old. They're meant to be like hundreds of thousands of years old, just like just like a lot of stuff in cosmic horror in the Cthulhu mythos, stuff like that. And it's the fact that they're so old and so ancient, and we're so young and naive and uninformed by comparison.
Dead Space is a great example of body horror as well.
I was just going to say body. Oh man, and then some. Holy hell! The second game opens with you in a straitjacket.
Oh yeah, Jesus!
And a guy is like, "Oh, Isaac, yeah, I'm here to get you out of here, all right? When you can come with and then like a one of the winged creatures attaches to his back, stabs a spike into his forehead, and he mutates into one of the slashers right in front of you.
That really reminded me of the Thing. That really reminded me of the Thing, when they're all tied down into the chairs and they're trying to figure out who's the monster, and then there's that one guy at the end and he turns and he's like starts to eat the other guy in the chair beside him. Like I think that's the one where like his head like opens like that, like a mouth. And he like
a Venus flytrap almost.
Yeah. Like
the Thing is amazing. Is incredible body horror, and also like what I love about the Thing is the paranoia aspect. Like if it was just a monster that was like a blob that was consuming things, that was constantly following them, that wouldn't be as intriguing to me. It's the idea that that any one of us could be the imposter, and it's like what's the game?
Among Us.
You said it a while ago. Huh?
Among Us, yeah.
It's a totally where the fun of Among Us is.
Well, that's what Among Us was inspired by, though. Is the thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, even some of the animations they do when you kill someone looks like one of the mutations that the Thing had, where he shoots a spike at you, or he turns into a Venus flytrap and eats you.
That scene with where they're going to restart that guy's heart, and the chest opens into a set of jaws and bites the guy's arms off. That's one of the greatest scenes in cinema history. I do not care what genre. That's up there with the alien bursting through John Hurt's chest in Alien.
Oh yeah, and all practical.
Yeah.
All practical. But yeah, I mean, like, so yeah, in terms of body horror, but it's the paranoia thing that I love. It's the and like the intrigue. It's like, I love the bit where they're slowly figuring out that it can't replicate non-living material and stuff like that. So it can't replicate the fillings in our teeth, or isn't there some aspect of it where if you have an imperfection, it tries to create you to look proper. So if you have something like a cut or something like that, it may not have the cut. I love all the ways they you really have to learn to outsmart the creature.
It's the thing,
body horror and paranoia in The Thing and in Dead Space.
Yeah, and I think that with The Thing as well, The Thing is John Carpenter, who is like an absolute legend of horror cinema. He did The Thing. He's also the guy who did Halloween. And there was a thing you said earlier about a character being a force of nature. What we were talking about there, I'm not entirely.
We're talking about Strahd.
Strahd, right? The way you describe Strahd there is exactly how John Carpenter describes Michael Myers the entire way through. Like every time if you watch the first Halloween film, every time you see Michael Myers before he's fully revealed, you only see part of him, or he's like it's like you get very small glimpses of him around the start of the movie as the character is just going about her daily life, as Laurie Strode is just going to school, being around home. You see him every so often, and he appears and he disappears, but every time he appears, he's accompanied by that that theme score, and always as well, the wind is blowing. He brings the darkness with him. Like, he is not just a man, because like you said, a man can be shot and killed. He's a symbol. He is fear.
As we've seen in Halloween, he cannot be shot and killed. He's been shot a bunch of times.
Oh my god, that man takes a bullet like a champ.
Oh man, yeah, but that definitely, he's being like a force of nature, being something that, again, but I think that comes from the root fear of something being inexplicable or you not understanding it. So like, by all rights, when he shows up, well, okay, a guy as big as he is, wearing plain dark clothes and a mask, should not be able to walk around a neighborhood
and be
completely unnoticed, but he does, and there's something about that that's unsettling. Likewise, he should not be able to take he gets hit with a hammer, or he gets hit by a car or shot, but he gets back up. He shouldn't, but he does. And part of you when you're watching that, some people might watch that and go, that's totally unrealistic, but that's not the point. It's not the point, isn't it, to be realistic or unrealistic? The point is he keeps going. It keeps coming, and if some part of your brain doesn't understand that, or if you see him get back up and you're like, oh, he's getting back up, perfect. That's exactly what you're meant to feel in that moment. It doesn't make sense, but you're terrified by it.
Yeah, I believe it's meant to emulate that dream. Do you know that dream everyone's had at least once in their life, where you're running away from something, and no matter how hard you're running, you're going slow and you're barely making speed, but the thing chasing you is moving at full speed? I think, I don't know if it was John Carpenter that said this, but it might have been someone reviewing it that I watched or read, but they're saying like the whole film up until the point where you get into the last act is like one of those dreams. Because like he's just getting closer and closer and closer. He starts killing her friends, then he starts appearing more. Finally, the last stretch of the thing is coming up, and it's with slashers as well. Slashers build very, very rapidly. It'll be like a whole bunch of build up. Then the first kill happens, and then in the time it took all that time for the first kill to happen. Then there'll be 3 kills in half the time of the first kill. Then there'll be another kill after, and it just speeds. Like it goes from like boom, 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 straight up, and that's like the way a slasher builds. And I think like, if we're looking for inspirations and stuff, like John Carpenter is just the man. He's done so many great films, and so many of them like that didn't get good critical receptions at the time because people weren't ready for that kind of horror. Like The Thing was trashed when it came out, but like I would say, like, if I had to give like 3 people to look into for like really good horror films, or really good inspiration for like different styles, I would say Ari Aster, who's the guy who did both Hereditary and Midsommar. He does like really
the things I've seen from Hereditary unsettle me.
Midsommar, if you're doing like a culty story, like where like a cult is a big thing of it, and they're like indoctrinating people and they do fucked up weird shit, give Midsommar a watch. Midsommar is like so weird. It's a horror film, but it's also extremely just out there and weird and psychedelic. But so Ari Aster, he does really good work. Guillermo del Toro with Pan's Labyrinth and The Pale Man. Oh, what a fucking! Do you know that he's the guy who like he has eyes in the palms of his hands?
Eyes on his hands.
Yeah. He's both of us just like high five. But yeah, he's amazing, and like I don't think I need to go on at length about why Guillermo del Toro is a fucking amazing director, but just he does Pan's Labyrinth, which is like fairy tale dark fantasy horror, and he also has Crimson Peak, which is just straight up pitch perfect period gothic horror. It's very, very Edgar Allan Poe. I would really recommend that.
I could be wrong with this. Did Guillermo del Toro do the first two Hellboy movies?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, those are great movies.
Those are really, those are like
they're not particularly horror-ish. Yeah. They're definitely more fantasy, but
dark fantasy. Yeah, I would call them.
Yeah.
And then like I think for like Circus, I'm going to leave my last two are like one of the masters of it and someone modern who I think does it really well, and it's Alfred Hitchcock, who I think needs no explanation as to why. Give his stuff a watch if you're looking to do like horror and suspense, particularly like thriller stuff. Hitchcock is the man. And then James Wan. He's done the whole all the good stuff from the Conjuring universe is James Wan. And he's like, it's mental because I think he was doing Fast and the Furious stuff. Then he did The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2, and I think he did the Annabelle remake. That's actually very good. And then he did like Aquaman and stuff, and now he's coming back to do more horror stuff as well. But like his horror is very, very good. It's not very jump scary and stuff, like it's earned. And and then like obviously like, Alfred Hitchcock is just one of the goats. Like The Crow, like The Birds, fucking why can I not remember the one with the Bates Motel? Psycho.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah. Fun fact: the woman killed in the shower in Psycho is the mother of Jamie Lee Curtis, who played Laurie Strode in Halloween.
That's Jamie Lee Curtis's actual mother?
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it was really good. That's how she got into it.
Yeah, both two people from two very, very famous horror films. That's really cool.
It's really cool.
But Martin.
Yes, Conor.
That's all the time we have today.
Jeez, that really flew. I love talking about like horror and stuff like that anyway, so like it's always a blast to have an excuse to talk about it, particularly with like Van Richten's coming out, and we just get to talk about all that fun like Van Helsing style ridiculous like classic gothic horror stuff.
I'm particularly looking forward to this upcoming book.
Oh god, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I also kind of wish I hadn't done a horror arc, but Halloween is a thing. We can work it out. Conor, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on Twitter at 0.Conor, ZeroPointConor, 1N, very important. And also here on the Micflayers podcast.
Yeah. If you're looking for me on the internet, I can be found on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, which is also under here. And you can also find us through our official Twitter account, at Micflayerspod, which will be down in the bottom right hand corner there for our YouTube viewers. But that's pretty much about it for where you can find me. I'm always here every week, as always with Conor. So I would say thank you very much, guys, for watching. And we'll join you this time next week for another episode of the Micflayers podcast. Bye bye.
Later, folks.
Bye.